More now on the president's surprise announcement today that all troops will be back home by the end of the year. It is a plank that candidate Obama campaigned on, and one would think another victory for the president with regards to foreign policy. Of course, as we saw yesterday with Libya, Republican opponents are reluctant to offer praise to this administration. For more on this, I'm joined now by Goldie Taylor, columnist with Agrio.com and a former Marine, along with Karen Finney, an MSNBC policy analyst and former communications director for the DNC. And I wonder if I could start with you, Karen. The events of the past 2 days, Libya and now Iraq, have been monumental for this president's foreign policy. And yet it seems Republicans won't give him any credit. I mean, what does he need to do? Does he need to raise Lazarus from the dead?
You know what, Martin? Even if he did that, I am sure they would say that George Bush deserves some amount of credit, wouldn't they? It really, frankly, it makes the Republicans look even less credible than they already do, that they couldn't even acknowledge. And some of the criticism, I just saw Boehner's statement, at least he acknowledged the work of our troops, our intelligence community, and the civilian folks who've been working in Iraq and Afghanistan. But, you know, Martin, I tweeted this earlier and got a tremendous response. Look at the foreign policy successes. That is what President Obama can get done when the GOP cannot obstruct him. I think there's something there that we ought to be looking at.
Absolutely. Goldie, with the news on Iraq today, statements are coming into the newsroom fast and furious. Herman Cain criticised the way the president delivered the news. And here's what Mitt Romney had to say. Listen to this. President Obama's astonishing failure to secure an orderly transition in Iraq has unnecessarily put at risk the victories that were won through the blood and sacrifice of thousands of American men and women. What?
Well, what is right? You know, I think today that they want to give the credit to Australia or Antarctica for raising an army. I think at the end of the day, the President Obama, he certainly got through a surgical, tactical strike Osama bin Laden. He also took on Alaki and now Muammar Gaddafi. He's done that, without losing a single American life. He's done it without stretching our military beyond its capacity. And now he's bringing down troops in Iraq. And I think, if we look at foreign policy, as Karen said, that's where the president is winning, and that's where Congress is least able to, obstruct him. The next thing you're going to hear from the GOP is that they want us to invade Uzbekistan.
Karen, they are beginning to look utterly ludicrous, though, aren't they?
Yeah.
I understand that they're reluctant to give credit, but at the end of the day, this stack of achievements is now becoming voluminous.
Absolutely. And again, it's a matter of promises made, promises kept. And those are the kinds of things that really matter when you're an incumbent president running for re-election, to say, I promised I would do these things. I promised I wouldn't take my eye off the ball of going after Osama bin Laden, and we got him. I promised that we would get troops out by the end of 2011, and we're going to do it. And yet the Republicans are also trying to have it both ways. I saw Ari Fleischman on the one hand was tweeting to say that Bush deserves credit because he's the one who actually initially put out the date that it would be by the end of 2011 in that famous press conference where he had the shoe thrown at him. And then here again, you have Herman Cain criticizing the timing, and you have Mitt Romney criticizing. So they're also trying to have it both ways.
And Goldie, you'll remember that Dick Cheney, when he published his memoir, started talking about the fact that his interrogation methods, enhanced interrogation, that we should be praising those methods because that was what led to Osama bin Laden being killed.
I think the information has really come out that says that is exactly wrong, that we developed the information in different ways that stood outside of, doing people that way when they're in custody. I think it's just really important to note that as for the Republicans this year, whatever the president does, if he says the sky is blue, they'll swear that it is green. If he says the grass is green, they'll swear that it's yellow. So I think that, their, tact here has been to disagree and to obstruct, at every turn, just so that, they'd have an opportunity to regain the White House. So I think this is more about the resumption of power than it is about the good of the United States. And I think nothing could be more unpatriotic.
Indeed. Karen, I just wanted to mention to you that John McCain has just issued a statement saying this is a harmful and sad setback for the United States.
Of course he did. Does John McCain not realize that he's not running for president anymore? Do we really think that if McCain was president, our troops would be coming home right now? Of course they wouldn't. It's shocking.
But where is all this coming from?
Well, look, this is the same obstructionism and hatred that we have seen towards this president from day one. And time and again, they have said to us, goal number one is to defeat this president. And again, I think there's an issue here that they are losing some credibility. They're so ungracious in this. I mean, there's no reason that they couldn't at least say, you know, President Bush deserves some credit, if you feel like you have to say that, and President Obama deserves some credit, but let's keep the most credit on our troops. I mean, they were so ungracious. What'll also be interesting, though, as we go forward in this presidential election is as the Republican candidates hopefully get further vetted on their foreign policy ideas. I heard Rick Perry's communications director earlier today saying something completely ignorant about how he says that President Obama's strategy in the Middle East has been so incoherent, when actually I think it's been very coherent and understood that you can't take a cookie-cutter approach. Libya is not Egypt, and yet they didn't seem to understand that. So I hope we get to that in this election cycle.
Goldie, just a final question. Do you think Herman Cain can spell the word Iraq?
Yeah, I'm sure that he can spell Iraq, but I'm not certain that he, knows what to do, in terms of our foreign policy. So I don't know exactly what the Cain doctrine is. And if we did know what it was, he may backtrack it the following day or within hours. And I think that you find that with an awful lot of the GOP candidates in this field today. They frankly just don't have the credibility to lodge attacks against this president on his foreign policy when he's done exactly what he promised to do. He's been exactly the president that he told us that he would be. I think it's time now for Republicans to stand up, listen to Americans, and realize that it's time for us to move together and move together forward. I just don't understand, some of the ad hoc attacks that are coming.